Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Mindful Muscle Podcast with my fabulous co-host, Jody. How you doing?
I'm great. If you're new here, welcome. Gio and I are two individuals who went on our own health and wellness journeys and collectively have lost and maintained a 145-pound weight loss. More importantly, we fell in love with the process of prioritizing our health and taking care of ourselves through nutrition and fitness, especially weightlifting. And we're here to show others, especially the beginner, that sustainable change is possible and we're worth the effort. So if you're on your own health and wellness journey, be sure to hit and subscribe to Mindful Muscle Podcast today.
Amen for that. Our next guest is Alan Welch. He's the host of Busy Pro Fast Wellness, a podcast that helps busy professionals boost energy, focus, and resilience with fast, practical wellness habits. He's a former semi-professional musician trained at the Guildhall School of Music. Alan has lived and worked across Europe, China, and Turkey over the past 30 years, a former elite runner, and we'll find out more about that here in a second. Alan, how are you doing today?
I'm doing very well. Thank you so much for the introduction, John. I'm really excited to be here. I have to say
Go
that
ahead.
I lived in Spain much longer than the other countries you mentioned.
Hey, before we dive into it, Tommy, I love your accent. So give me a little background on your accent and where you're at today.
I was born in Southampton in the south of England, 100 kilometres from London, then went up to Colchester and to London to do my undergraduate and postgraduate studies. I've got a big connection with Brighton where I worked. It's a little seaside place and quite well known in England. I've always been around the south or the southeast of the UK and not really ventured too much into the other areas sporadically.
We have a friend of ours that we met in a fitness group, and he's from across the pond. And so I didn't pick up on it right away because your accent is British, but I should have known that. It's unique. I don't hear too many British accents, and so it's always nice to find out. Tell us a little bit about your music endeavor before we get into the wellness.
Yeah, of course. Basically, when I first graduated and then did a postgrad in performance, I spent time performing in the UK for a little bit before I thought I'm doing a few shows here, but I wanted to go into education because part of my program in my undergrad and postgrad was to teach. I was doing workshops in education and decided to try to find a job, but I couldn't find a job in England. So I ended up, the first job I found was in Turkey. So I went over to Turkey as a music teacher, and then I taught drama as well because I became very interested in that. That was part of one of my modules when I was studying. So I was a music and drama teacher for a couple of years, and then I got into a band over there, which was quite successful at the time. It got so successful that I was able to give up the day job. We were gigging like 4 or 5 days a week, and in fact it actually interfered with some of the things I was doing at school. I had to go on tour and stuff at the secondary school that I was at, and I just had to quit because it was too difficult to juggle other outside endeavors, which I didn't mind. The primary school stuff was fantastic, the secondary school not so much. That age group I found difficult. So when the opportunity came to leave, I was like, result, I'll just carry on with the music. I met my wife out there, and we are still married.
Amen for that.
All this time. It's a long time ago. We're talking early 90s here.
So you had, like you said in your own words, a successful music career, but I know from musicians that I know that's a hectic lifestyle, traveling overnight, doing gigs. How do you transition from the music to the fitness? And I'm looking at what you shared with us, a 241 marathon. A lot of people are happy for a half marathon in 241. How'd you achieve that?
That's an interesting one because at that period of my life, I wasn't running at all. I ran for my county when I was a youngster, and I didn't run again until really the mid-90s. I began running in earnest, again, picking up an earlier passion I had when I was a youngster. I just became more and more enthusiastic about it. By the time I went to England, which was 99, I thought I'm going to really go for it. I joined a club And that is the 5 years. I did the London Marathon 5 years consecutively. I churned out three sub 2:45s in that time. I was a member of the Brighton Hove Athletics Club at that point. It was a time when I was focused on the running, but I had other issues to contend with. And so that was a stress release as well. But it was also dedication. I was training 6 times a week. If you're doing half marathons, 10Ks, 15Ks, marathons, which is not really my ideal distance at all. I've always found it. I can't walk for about 4 days afterwards. Not can't walk down the stairs. You push yourself. And that was the way that I got into it. I carried on running for many years after that. I still run now, but I don't run as much because I had an injury. But I can still whip the other youngsters out there.
I am so excited you're here. We haven't had a
Yeah.
guest on since June, so thank you so much for being
Wow.
here. And
No.
now it's great to dive in and learn from others and hear their experiences. So, how did you go from music to what you do now with your podcast and trying to show others
Yeah.
that you can make sustainable changes and work towards transformation?
That's quite a powerful question in the sense that it wasn't really a natural progression at that point in my life. It was more that I'd overcome certain issues and I wanted to do something to help others because of what I'd gone through myself psychologically. I started to read quite a lot and I was looking at what direction can I go in? How can I serve others? Because I've always been into education and I've always learned stuff and I've taught as well. I teach at the university in Valencia. I still do that. I just fancied trying something that would marry up my own interests at the time, which were, I've always been interested in fitness, although not in my early years when I was a student and after that, but I still wanted to maintain physical fitness on a cardiovascular level, not in weight training.
Yeah.
And that's something I'm learning about even in the last couple of years. I'm learning how important that is. I just thought, you just run, you just get out on your bike, you do all the cardio stuff. And I found when you get older, you need to do weight training, especially because you need to keep your body muscle up. It's really important. So now I combine that and it's really niching down to think. And then I became interested. I read quite a lot. I listened to lots of podcasts. And I think the seminal moment for me was the fantastic book, Atomic Habits by James
Oh,
Clear.
yes. I have read it as
Not
well.
yet.
Oh, okay.
Not yet.
No,
Okay.
I highly recommend it. Really, this concept of these small sustainable changes that you can do, which will compound over time. And I'm somebody with the music, there is a correlation because if you want to get to a very advanced level in music, you've got to put the hours in. You've got to be disciplined and focused. You really have to be. Because if you're not, then you won't. I've never been one of those people that goes out and some of my peers at the time, 5 or 6 hours practice a day. That's probably going to, that sort of level is, I'm happy to, when I was a music student, maybe a couple of hours a day I was practicing, but it's how you practice. And it's the same with your health. It's really how you do it. You don't need to spend hours on it, but the small amounts of time that you do needs to be focused, it needs to be concentrated. If you want to make those improvements, you don't have to spend much time. 5 minutes a day could be enough. That could lead to other things. It's forming the habit in the first place. 1 minute a day, 30 seconds. Try and just do the motions. I have a little morning exercise I do. It takes me about 12 to 15 minutes. I do it every morning. Some days I'll do it for 2 minutes. Other days I'll do it for 25 minutes. Depends on how much time I've got and how focused I am at that moment. And I think that's key in all of this. And there are days when, and I've heard you talk about this, it's a theme which recurs, when you don't feel like doing things, when you don't have the energy. But if you just go through the motions, even if it's just like a nod, I think that's important to maintain that on a daily-ish, great word, daily-ish basis. If you miss a day, doesn't matter. Then you just don't miss 2 days. Let's take on it, unless you schedule that.
You know, it's funny you mentioned that. I was going to go in a different direction, but last night we've been so stressed about moving. Yeah. My wife and I, we were tracking our calories, and then we got to dinner and we said, the hell with it. We ate so much more calories than it, because we know that when you don't feel like being disciplined, one day is not going to kill you. You just hop back on the saddle, and we're there today. Your story is fascinating, right? Because you had a successful music career, you're into wellness now. But there was a period there where you had a struggle with alcohol. How did the
Yeah.
fitness, or how did you, which came first? Was it you got sick and tired of alcohol that you got into fitness, or the fitness helped you get out of alcohol? Or what's the story
The
behind it?
fitness was always part of it, and alcohol was very much prevalent in the culture and music, especially as a
Mm-hmm.
brass player. I'm a trumpet player first study.
Okay.
So everybody, when I was a student, we all went out, we were drinking every night. That was normal. Even the professional musicians at the time, and my uncle, he played in the LSO, he was on the Superman and Star Wars, he played all of those things. I would go out with him and we'd be at the pub drinking, and then he'd
In
go
the
and off and do a
daytime?
gig,
Mercy.
with the LSO. And I've been with these guys. The horns player, they're alcoholics of the time. Not so much now. I think we're talking 80s, 90s. I think it was so endemic in the culture that most people grew out of it. They settled down and they got married, and we moved around a lot, but it was still there. The wine was still there. So for me, the running or the physical activity was a way of being able to continue the drinking. The
Okay.
drinking was probably the primary factor here. Even when I was doing those marathons, getting those times, I was still drinking a bottle of wine a night. Maybe not the night before the actual race, but I still have a glass or two. I might reduce it. So it was just what I would do. But then I thought to myself, when I hit my 50s, payback's
Mercy.
going to have to come at some point. If you don't change your lifestyle, you are going to have problems. My uncle died at 52 back in 1996 of cancer, but that wasn't enough. My father had cancer. He carried on till he was 80 before he passed away. I was concerned that there was going to be some payback. And then I talked to other alcoholics. A horn player of mine who was an alcoholic helped me with a couple of podcasts, a book, and it really worked. And there was a eureka moment.
Yes.
I can give you the date. It was May the 8th, 2023, when I suddenly clicked with the help of a Dr. Andrew
Oh,
Huberman
yes.
podcast, 2-hour one on alcohol. And that's scary biscuits. That is, it really is.
Yeah.
Tell you that. But I would say I feel a bit of a charlatan in the sense that I am not dry. I do have the odd drink, but I drink so little. I can days and days where I don't touch it. Then I have a glass of wine at dinner or something, but I haven't drunk tonight. I won't drink tonight. I didn't drink last night. I might have a glass tomorrow if I'm with some friends, but it's not let's get really inebriated here.
That's good. You mentioned about your uncle. It wasn't necessarily alcohol related. Some people never get to that point where you ask that powerful question, when will payback be? Right? Because sometimes people think that it's too late. I'm in my 40s, I'm in my 50s. It's never too late to get in shape. It's
No.
never too late to start healthy habits. And so I'm glad that clicked for you. And who knows what the future holds.
Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. I feel so good because of this journey I've been on in over a year now since I started doing the podcast. As I've been doing it, I've been understanding and gleaning more and more positivity because of the research and what I'm learning in the process. It's a very heuristic process, the whole thing. It's a massive learning curve that's taking place as I'm doing it. I can safely say, with my hand on my heart, that in the last 2 months, there's been a real click where the sense of peace, tranquility, happiness really come there, as opposed to having doubts or too much clutter in the brain. The brain feels really at ease. I've shed lots of stuff in the mind. So there's been a real turning point for me of joy, ultimately, as a
Awesome.
result of this journey.
Awesome.
So you overcame 30 plus years of alcohol dependency. What has that taught you about being resilient?
Yeah, it taught me. I tried many times in the last 6 or 7 years to have one night off. And there were a couple of years where I managed to have 3 nights off when we went to the Alps. Somehow that place, I could do that in 3 consecutive nights. But what it taught me was that you have to find a way with help. Even though with all the resilience I've had other endeavors in my life, I couldn't really crack this one. I could crack other things. I always managed to overcome challenges. I've had them in the past, not just to answer your question, but that one was so hard. I did seek help It wasn't in the sense of going to an AA meeting or an
Yeah.
Alcoholics Anonymous type thing, but it was enough with a few close friends and that podcast I mentioned and a book that was suggested and I read. So after that, it wasn't so much resilience, it was a click. Now, there are days where I feel, oh, Alan, you have to reframe your identity. You know what it's like. You've got to change. I know that you both are aware of this because you've mentioned this in your podcast about reshaping that identity. And I've had to do that. So it's meant that I've had to change what I do, where I do it. I don't go out as much now to live music concerts with certain friends because it's going to be too indulgent.
Yeah.
So I had to, now I can. The first year of like this, I was living in a pretty hermit-like existence because I couldn't take the temptation. But now I can go out and have a couple of beers and I go into fizzy water after, and it's absolutely fine, or non-alcoholic beer. I drink so much non-alcoholic beer now. The fridge is full of the stuff.
Earlier, you mentioned your podcast. Let us know a little. You can go ahead and promote it as well. What is your podcast specifically about? How long ago did you start it?
Yeah, I've done 53 episodes now, one a week, so just over a year. The podcast itself has slightly evolved, but the premise of the podcast originally, and to a big extent now, is the same. It's this concept of finding very short points of time in your busy days to take a quick break, a minute, 2 minutes, where you can reset your mind and body. Sometimes we become really cluttered if we're just focusing on something which is saturating to the mind. Then if you just take out I put a timer on my phone. This is one of my best ways of doing it, for every sort of 30 minutes. And then I will stop and then I'll do 3 types of exercises. One would be a movement type thing or a breathing type thing or an auditory type thing, which is a way of breaking up that. But it's also lots of different types of exercises. And I go into details and I do practical stuff. I explain the exercises in the podcast themselves.
Yeah.
When I'm doing a solo podcast, I try to get it to 10, no more than 12 minutes. And then I've had guests on as well in the last 2 or 3 months. And we gain lots of insights from the guests on all the different types of things to do with nutrition, physical health, mental health, and topics such as consistency and resilience. It's just having those little exercises that you can do to refresh, if you like, constantly. I think it really helps.
Yeah, I don't know if you're a religious man, but this is found in the Bible. When you think of the character Daniel, he prayed 3 times a day. When you think about what you were just saying, just taking time throughout the day to reset, and depending on your religious persuasion, prayer is like that reset. I like to do that in the middle of the day. I just take anywhere between 5 to 20 minutes to meditate on what I'm supposed to be doing that day. Because you can make a to-do list in the morning, and by noon, something throw you off your game. A kid got hurt or an emergency happened. So you refocus. Sometimes we find ourselves so busy that we get to the end of the day and you got distracted on some rabbit trail and you never accomplished what you set out to accomplish. However, had you stopped in the middle of the day to reset, you can get back on track. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely true. And I think what you just said about the fact that things do hinder your day, with children, unexpected tasks that suddenly crop up in the day. And I feel that one of the keys to what I'm trying to convey in my messages is also that sense of flexibility. And I feel that I've narrowed it down to 5 things, which one of my episodes, episode 50, and as you were talking about, I was just jotting them down, trying to remember them. It's called an SSCCF, and it's like simplicity. Simplicity is one of the things, then systems, and then one of the other things is consistency, and then we have curiosity, flexibility. And that's the last of those pillars. And if you employ those, I would definitely agree with what you just said, Gio, about I do believe in a higher power. I don't follow any particular faith, but I do believe that there is a higher power up there. And I certainly can relate to this concept of taking that time out and praying, because it's the same, even not the same, of course. the gratitude practices, which
Yeah,
is
yeah.
something that I've talked about a couple of
Mm-hmm.
times. I'm so grateful for what I have. I
Mm.
have good health. I've got a lovely wife. I've got
Amen.
a great family. I really appreciate. I've got really good friends, and I that sense of community is so important. Having that social side is something which you don't want to take for granted, because if you don't invest in that, then of course things can go awry. You can take time to visualize, meditate, to pray, whatever is your bag.
Yeah.
And I think that is all very positive for sure.
With society, they talk about that anxiety is the number one reason people seek help. In your
Mm.
walk of life and knowing your background, because each background is different, what do you see the most of people that you try to help? What are they dealing with the most? How do you try to help them?
Yeah, that's really interesting because I've noticed different characteristics. One of the ones that seems to come up quite a lot is, and this is a problem of understanding and doing that. You've got to be careful not to
Mm-hmm.
come over as a little bit arrogant or egotistical. Never go down that route, because you can't advise people. You can only try to suggest through example, or give an example, but don't say this is what you ought to do. But I
Yeah.
see procrastination. I
Mm.
see that all the time. And for
Guilty as
example,
charged.
yeah, in your daily activities, whatever you do that one thing that can move the needle, or that
Mm-hmm.
one thing that gives you pleasure. Now, you need to schedule that in, because if you don't, what are you living for? But you have to have that. And also the thing that will move your business forward, or move the work forward, or your
Mm-hmm.
relationship. But those, just one or two things every day. And that needs to be a priority. And then people just plod along and they don't think about anything else except how to get from day to day, how to
Mm-hmm.
survive. And there are easier ways if you just shed back and keep it simple, because simplicity really does rule.
Mm-hmm.
Wherever you can, keep it
Mhm.
simple. I spent my life being so complicated and overcomplicated things, decision wise, decision fatigue. Oh no. Now it's, no, it's just simple, man.
Mm.
Come on.
If you can see my pillow here, it says "Keep it simple."
Good.
Yes, exactly. And
Fantastic.
then there's the famous kiss, right? Keep it simple, stupid.
One of the things that I read in your bio that got me super excited was talking about transformation not having to be overwhelming and the power of
Yes.
small
Yeah.
steps, because I think people get hung up on the all or nothing mindset. They think you have to spend 8 hours a week in the gym, and if you can't, then forget it. Let's dive into some of those small steps, or how busy professionals struggle, and simple hacks they can do to help them actually get to the
Yeah.
goals that they seek.
Yeah. One of the things I would always suggest is having some sort of definite structure, if you can, in the morning, of some morning routine, which you wake up and you do systematically. Then you form a habit. There are a myriad of exercises you can do. I do dynamic stretches and
Mm.
a little bit of body weight work, which is enough to set you up for the day. I would highly recommend that. Other things which are really powerful are breathing exercises. We get stressed naturally. I recommend trying to strip those things down, not do the things which are not leveraging your progression in your life. People have to understand how that happens, and that takes time. I would say always realize that the journey is a simple one. It's going to be, if you keep doing something every day, imagine 30 days down the line, how much improvement you would have made. Whether that's a
Mhm.
simple thing with exercise, or just mindset change with trying to do maybe even, I don't know, a hobby that you have. Playing a musical instrument, it could be. That's the first example that came to my head as a musician. But you will make progress. But people think, oh, I've got to do so much, and they don't. My
Mhm.
auntie, literally this week, I have to go to Portugal. She's from the States.
Mm.
She's English, but she moved to the States. She's moved to
Mm.
Portugal now with her. And I have to go and pick up my father's alto saxophone, because my dad's he was a musician. And she said to me, and I hope she probably will listen to this podcast. I listen to it, Auntie Jill. She said to me, when I was a kid, because we were brought up, they were brought up, three of them, three siblings by their grandmother. And the two sons, my uncle who died, I mentioned earlier, and my father, they were encouraged to play music because my grandparent was a musician, my grandfather. They ended up doing very well, but because she was a girl, my great grandma said, "Oh no, she won't play an instrument. She's a girl. But that's not the way." And she said to me, "That was it. Now she's only 76. She's not that old." And she's like, and I said to her, "Look, I'm going to pick up Dad's alto saxophone at the end of October. I was going to pick up that trumpet I bought just to practice when I was over in the States visiting my father because he lived in the States for 30 years. But you can keep it, Jill. You can keep that trumpet and you can play it, and I'll help you form your embouchure because I used to teach trumpet. Do 10 minutes a day, and you will see progress within a year. If your embouchure is not appropriate at your age, you can't, I will tell you straight away." And I didn't get a response to her from that. She didn't reply to that WhatsApp message because she's thinking, I thought, you could do that. It's possible. Why not do it if you've got these hang-ups? And she definitely had a hang-up because she started, my granddaughter, I'm going to make sure that she doesn't have that. She's going to have the head start. It's not too late. And that's what you said, Chief. Never. So there you are. I don't know if that answered your question, actually, Jody. I probably went off rambling like I tend to do. Sorry about that.
Yeah. No.
Let's talk about how music, creativity, and movement all connect to building a healthier, more fulfilling life.
When I was teaching in Turkey, I was employed as a music and drama teacher. And one of the things that we would do is I would put on music theatre skits with the students. I would play the piano and I tried to get their creativity to create stories with simple prompts or pictures, and then we would create a story with movement, and I had loads of percussion instruments and they would use those. Marrying music with that movement at a young age is a real key to harnessing creativity from an early age. Unfortunately, depending on where you're brought up, depending on who's in power, if it's the right or the left, it's more left-leaning in the UK. It was very much promoted music and theatre in schools, and I really do think that's important, along with languages, etc. And I thought that's a really good way. But as you get older, we are taught that you get to a certain age and your brain faculties don't work in the same way. So therefore, you're not likely to have that sort of creativity and able to harness it in the same way. It's true that you've been affected by society and you'll become more insular naturally, most people. So they won't have that joie de vivre they would have had when they were younger. So that's one aspect of it. I feel that's important from an early age, if at all possible. But when you get older, one of the beauty of movement and dance, for example, is that it's such a joyous thing to do. And I think a couple of the episodes of my podcast, I've talked about the impact of music with dance or with movement, because you can do some of the exercises with music. And I feel it can absolutely raise the game, and it's exhilarating. There are days when you want to focus, you want to be in the zone. You might not feel like playing any music, but there'll be days when you put it on and you are absolutely rocking down there. So I feel those two examples that I've given you from that early age, and also how you can utilize music and movement, because movement's so important. So many people talk about this, and we're all in the similar game. It's old rope, isn't it? We know all of this stuff.
Yeah.
We forget that other people don't necessarily. I was listening to a podcast recently saying you mustn't presume that everybody knows what you know, because it's so natural, and you've got to, should I say that? Isn't that obvious? Consistent. But people we need to be reminded at times. We all need to have that. I don't know if that answered your question, Jody, but I hope that was an in to some
Well,
extent.
it reminded me of something. For example, you are a runner, right? You used to run marathons and you have great time. For Jody and I, but I'll speak more for myself, we're not big into running. That's just not the way we get cardio. Jody gets her cardio through CrossFit. I like Peloton and stuff. You talk about combining the music because it can distract you into moving in a way that you enjoy. For example, I don't
Yeah.
like running, but lately I've been playing basketball full court, and I could play for hours, and that's running back and forth, right? What I don't like to
Yeah.
do running, I'm actually doing, but because it's in a different venue and a
Yeah.
different format, I enjoy it a lot. And I could
Yeah.
spend an hour, 2 hours going back and forth. I think that's important for people. I personally believe that everybody has a form of movement they will enjoy. Is that sometimes they get stuck in the traditional ones and they don't enjoy those. Find a way
Yeah.
of movement that you like that can be considered healthy.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. You mentioned the Peloton, and I'm a massive tennis fan. I enjoy playing tennis very
Okay,
much.
yeah.
But in Spain, I play paddle. That's become even more popular, and I just got into it much more than tennis these days. In fact, Jill, if you're listening, she's massively into paddle now, but she was into over in the
Yeah.
States. She played that, and then she transitioned to paddle since she's moved to Portugal only last year.
Yeah.
She's been living in the States for 25 years.
So I have a curious question now. You've lived in Europe, Asia, Turkey. You live in
Yeah.
Spain now. You're currently in France. You have an aunt in Portugal. Unfortunately, America is one of the most overweight countries in the world. The
Yeah.
Western diet is killing people. When you've
Mm.
traveled, which country seems to be more in tune to staying healthy? And which country you would say outside of the United States would be unfortunately following the American example, and each generation
Mm.
seems to be getting less.
Yeah, no, of all the countries I've lived in, there's two answers to this because the cuisine and
Hmm.
the quality of the food was the best in Italy
Okay.
where we lived in it. That
Mm.
was definitely I would always say that you can't really beat that quality. I think that's just pasta and pizza. No, all their antipastos and the way that they cook,
Yeah.
the flair is
Hmm.
just second to none. But probably is that the healthiest? I don't know. I would
Hmm.
probably have to go for China, believe it or not. If I had to
Hmm.
really choose, depending on your perspective, I've been talking to other people recently and I've started even questioning nutrition generally from talking to carnivores and ketogenic people. But if I go to what is considered universally as healthy, I would say that the way that they eat their diets with lots of vegetables, lots
Hmm.
of rice, fair amounts of meat, but not necessarily a colourful diet. I would say they seem like a healthy nation compared to all the other places I've lived. They just seem like healthier people. They're not. You
Hmm.
don't get very many overweight Chinese. We lived there for almost 2 years in Sichuan
Hmm.
province. Other countries, the United States and UK, it's obvious there's an obesity
Connection.
epidemic.
Yeah.
That's really. I go back to UK now.
Hmm.
And there are fat people everywhere. My
Hmm.
mum points, why are they so big these days? That's the case because of the poor nutrition at an early
Hmm.
age and all that processed food, which is filtered into the American diet and the UK
Hmm.
diet. It exists in Spain, but people make wiser choices. So you
Hmm.
don't get that obesity in the same way in Spain. And people eat more salads, more olive oil, more fish.
Hmm.
It's a better, healthier Mediterranean diet than with all this processed sugary stuff that people eat in the UK and the United States. There's a problem with dye food, and the
Hmm.
additives are even worse than the UK, and they're
Yeah.
pretty bad in the UK. Hopefully things will improve in the future. Let's hope.
I think the biggest issue is all the nonsense. Like, you have people who will try to convince you that you should never eat spinach, vegetables,
Yeah.
rice. It's
Broccoli.
no wonder people get to a point where they're so confused what they are allowed to eat that they just
Mm,
give up.
Hmm.
And we're
yeah.
taught how to diet. We're not taught how to eat. The education piece and people on TikTok screaming in the grocery store about you're eating poison. I think that does more harm than good. Then people
Yeah.
figure, why
Yeah.
even bother trying?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And I think I just interviewed a couple of guys, and they were wonderful guests, in fact, recently, both of that persuasion. I learned things from them, and I wouldn't go to this sort of ketogenic or carnivore diet because
Hmm.
I'm a flexitarian, but I eat
Yeah.
very little meat,
Mhm.
fish, but very rarely, once a week, if that. And one of the things I did glean from talking to these two guests who were brilliant, and they
Mhm.
weren't evangelistic at all,
Yeah.
but they did say, "Oh, you can." One of the things I asked the question, what can you do? Increase protein. And I'm thinking maybe I could eat a few more eggs.
Edamame pasta. I don't know if, like, for example, I'm 100% plant-based, but Jody is not. Neither of us are, like, I like the word you said, evangelists. Like, we're not dogmatic.
Yeah.
To each his own. And we understand everybody has to find what will get them to eat more healthy. If
Yeah,
that
for sure.
includes meat, because it's just your preference, then go ahead. My issue with meat eaters, the carnivore diet, that's too extreme. You need your fiber, you need your thing. And then on my end, the plant-based, a couple of months ago, there was this lady who was eating just raw food, and she ended up wasting away and dying. She wasn't even cooking her food. It was just raw. It's like when you go into extremes, that's when you get yourself in trouble.
I
Unhealthy
agree with
extremes.
you. Yeah, I made the point in the podcast that there is no one size fits all. We have to be mindful. I know what works for me. I feel good. I've had a decent diet for the last 20 years, and
Yeah.
maybe not when I was a student or living in Turkey. But after that period of time, when we left in 94, it was much better.
Have you ever
Yeah.
lived stateside?
No, but my dad, professional musician, met his wife, not my mum, because they separated when I was young. He met her when he was doing a world cruise, playing saxophone, and she was the piano player in the cocktail lounge of the QE2. So they were doing this
Oh,
world
wow.
cruise, and Dad was a rebound from a previous relationship, which had gone on for 13 years. And 6 months later, he went on this world cruise as a musician, met Arlene, got married 6 months after that, and we were like, this is never going to work. This is, what's he doing? What's Dad doing? And then they were married for 35 years.
Oh, that's
wow.
awesome. That's awesome. I don't think he's
Yeah,
going to
no.
mind.
No.
We mentioned your podcast, but I don't remember me asking, what's the name of the podcast? Where can they find it?
Yeah, the name is Busy Pro Fast Wellness, and it's all the major platforms, as most podcasts are.
Why that particular name?
Yeah, I'm not very good at names, obviously. It's a bit long-winded, isn't it?
You kept it
No,
simple.
I know.
I didn't keep it simple then at all. I wanted to encapsulate the idea of professionals and and being busy. So that's about the best I can come up with at the time. But yeah, so that incorporates that. But yeah, you can just... The thing is, I'm not very big on social media. I just started LinkedIn. I've got about 4,000 cat. But with Instagram, I only started that in June. So I don't really fare too well on that.
5 minutes a day and you'll get
Yeah.
going.
What I've preached. I do go on there from time to time, but it's just one of these things that you can be. I don't want to doom scroll, so I tend to avoid social media for those sorts of reasons.
Look, let me be honest. Like when it comes to Instagram, if it wasn't for Jody and her wonderful Instagram skills, I don't think I'd post anything. I just repost what she posts. Everybody has that default under stress. And so Instagram is not your thing per se, but it can be.
Yeah,
Like
it's new. I
Instagram,
don't
actually.
understand it.
I got on it late, and so right now I'm a big Twitter or X now. But I use X for religious purposes. You can't do everything on every platform.
Concentrate on LinkedIn more. I wouldn't say that I fare too well on that because you post something and the algorithms don't seem to play in your face unless you're some sort of top voice or something. You'll say, hello there, everybody. And you'll have
A million
thousands and
views.
thousands of likes.
Jody, one last question as we wrap up.
Sure. We talked about transformation not having to be overwhelming and that it's not too late to start to work on your goals. Say we have somebody that's still stuck on that all or nothing. If the stars aren't perfectly aligned and
Mercy.
I can't make a bazillion changes all at once, talk to them about the power of small steps and not giving up on yourself.
Yeah. This is one of the fundamental concepts that's promoted a lot about just starting something for 1 minute, because everybody can invest 1 minute of their time into whatever endeavor they want to do. My focus is on health and wellness. And if you feel stressed out, you want to try a minute, and you don't have to be a master of meditation. You can just try meditation for 1 minute. You can try that simple movement exercise for 1 minute. And I feel that One of the things that people talk about, again, I'm presuming that everybody knows this stuff, talk about the perfectionism, because that's such a massive factor. I have friends that won't do anything. I have a friend who won't go for a cycle ride with me because he has to do at least 100 kilometers or nothing. I said, we can just go out and do 40 or 50. No, it's not worth me getting on the bike. And then he won't go out at all. This is a problem that many people have. So just start small. Do it for 1 minute. Do it for 30 seconds. You might end up doing it for 2 minutes. And it's the same for anything. If you want to get good at running, for example, you go out for 1 minute, and then after 2 months, you're up to 30 minutes if you just increase it incrementally. So I think it's something which is doable, it's manageable. And I hate the idea that you become preachy about this because it's so simple. It really is. And I feel that's where people are procrastinating. They're using excuses. They're saying, this is the problem that people have. Self-deception, really, I feel. And it doesn't have to be. It really doesn't. It can be so simple. And that's my answer to that, really.
Yeah, that resonates because I talk to Jody all the time. A lot of people admire her and myself. We've lost collectively over 140 pounds and we've kept it off.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank
And
you.
we say, if we can bottle that up, right? That notion of the willpower to do it. If I could bottle that up, we'd be sipping virgin pina coladas in the Caribbean somewhere with our families enjoying free time. But it's simple, and yet many people find it hard to do. And I thank you for nuggets you've shared with us through your story.
On that simplicity idea is minimizing friction. And that's something many people have talked about. If you can minimize the friction to do whatever task you do, that means like leaving things around. In fact, I'm looking at it here, right down there. For me to do strength training, I have a band. I've got one upstairs as well, and I just see it. It reminds me there, and that's minimizing friction. If you want to get out early in the morning for a walk, put your trainers, your sneakers out there so people can see them, and you're more likely to do that in your attire. These little minimizing frictions are really good. You don't want to drink the beers in the fridge. Don't have them. Have the non-alcoholic ones in the fridge. Or put all the bad food at the back of the fridge where you can't get to it. There are lots of tricks that you can do to maximize the friction to get to that other stuff. That's one of the keys here.
You're our guest. It's funny you mentioned that. In the financial world, Dave Ramsey used to tell people, if you got trouble with credit cards and you don't want to give it up, put the credit card in a bucket, fill it up with water, and put it in the freezer. When you get tempted to use it, you have to chisel through all that ice to get to use it.
Great example. I'm going to nick that example.
There you go. Whatever you need to do to make you succeed, because in the end, you finally realize at some point you were going to have to pay the piper, and you decided to make a change. And so I pray that people don't get to a position where they're having to deal with a heart attack or a stroke to finally wake up. And so if you can do that beforehand, it'll be better for the individual and for their families and their loved ones. I saw a t-shirt one time that said, I will die for my children. But in the back of the t-shirt it said, but are you willing to live healthy for your children?
That's really powerful to have that anecdote there. It makes so much sense. One of the things that people don't think about, sort of, and it's the finitude of life, isn't it? And that's really important. It's to think about now, and it's about planting the seeds and trying to live each day with intention and good health. It's up to you. You have the power of those choices.
Amen. Before we let you go, let people know where they can find you and mention the podcast one more time.
Okay, it's Busy Pro Fast Wellness. If they type that into Google, my name is Alan Welch. That's Welch. And you'll find Busy Pro Fast Wellness. Type that into Google and my podcasts will come up. I haven't got round to doing a website yet, but I will be doing that in about 3 months. Okay. That's the time schedule.
And to help that Instagram handle.
Yes. I guess it's at Busy Pro Fast Wellness.
Okay, just like the podcast. You're keeping it simple and you got that synergy going.
I got that synergy going for that, yeah, for sure. I grabbed that one only recently, and I've got very
Mhm.
little content up there.
We're following you on my
Yeah.
muscle.
Yes.
And I'm following you as well. I
Yeah.
followed you. I was like,
Yay!
oh, they're
Yes.
back.
A Chinese proverb said, "The longest journey begins with one single step."
Exactly,
And
exactly.
so
Yes, and that's it. So this is the
you're on your
Instagram
way.
thing. Just keep plodding on with it. Do the odd post here and there, but yeah, absolutely
Alan
great.
Welch, thank you very much for joining us on the podcast. Until next time, everyone, be
Yeah,
blessed.
thank you
Don't
so
hang
much.
up.